Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku refused to finish a fight. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The sky over Joka's city was not blue. It was a bruised, choking violet, stained by the smoke of 1,000 fires and the dust of a crumbling civilization. Gravity seemed to have lost its hold on reality, replaced by the sheer, crushing pressure of two titanic forces colliding in the air. Izuku Midoriya could no longer feel his arms. The sensation had been replaced by a white-hot agony that vibrated through his very marrow, a screaming alert from a nervous system pushed far beyond its breaking point. But he couldn't stop. To stop was to die. To stop was to let the world die. Smash! The roar tore from his throat, raw and bloody. He swung his right leg in a devastating arc, the iron sole of his boot connecting with the regenerative shield of flesh that was Tamura Shigaraki. The impact cracked the air itself, sending a shockwave that shattered the windows of skyscrapers 3 blocks away. Shigaraki was flung backward, crashing through a suspended bridge of debris held aloft by Blackwhip. But the villain didn't fall. He skidded in midair, catching himself with a burst of radio waves and raw physical strength. His body was a ruin, burned by Endeavor, smashed by Deku, erased by Aizawa, but he was still moving. He was a marionette danced by hatred, his skin peeling, his eyes wide and manic. Is that all? Shigaraki's voice was a rasping hiss, amplified by the silence of the devastated city below. Is that all you have, heroes? Izuku gasped for air, his lungs burning. He floated there, the quirk of the 7th user keeping him suspended in the gray haze. Blackwhip tendrils writhed from his back like the legs of an angry spider, bracing his broken body. I'm at my limit, Izuku thought, the realization cold and sharp amidst the heat of battle. We're all at our limit. Below them, the battlefield was a hell's cape. Endeavor was down, clutching his chest, his flames sputtering. Bakugo and Todoroki were somewhere in the dust, fighting a desperate rearguard action against the near Heian Nomus. Eraserhead, Mr. Aizawa, was the only thing standing between victory and total annihilation. His eyes, dry and bloodshot, were fixed on Shigaraki, keeping the villain's destructive quirks locked away. But for how long? Midoriya! Bakugo's voice cut through the calms in his ear, distorted by static. Don't let up. If he touches the ground, we're dead. Keep him in the air. I know! Izuku screamed back. He forced One for All to surge again. The lightning that crackled around him shifted from green to a blinding, angry turquoise. 100%. He had to use 100%. If he didn't, Shigaraki wouldn't just survive. He would win. Izuku launched himself forward, the sound barrier shattering in his wake. He was a bullet of justice, a desperate prayer made of flesh and bone. Shigaraki met him, laughing, swinging a hand mutated by science and malice. They collided, a blur of motion too fast for the human eye to track. Hit him! Hit him! Hit him! The villain was panting. His movements were becoming sluggish. Then, the unthinkable happened. A stray beam of energy, perhaps from a Nomu, perhaps a ricochet from the battle below, sliced through the air. It didn't hit Izuku. It didn't hit Shigaraki. It struck the building where Eraserhead was perched. Through the dust, Izuku heard the sickening crunch of masonry. He saw the flash of movement as Ryukyu tried to shield Aizawa, but the collapse was too violent. For a split second, a fraction of a heartbeat, Shota Aizawa blinked. The red glow in Shigaraki's eyes flared. Teacher is gone, Shigaraki whispered, a smile splitting his face that was too wide, too full of teeth. The air pressure changed instantly. The erasure was lifted. Decay was back. All for One was back. DKU! Get away! The warning came from the vestiges inside his head, a collective scream of danger sense that nearly blinded him. But it was too late to retreat. Shigaraki's hand shot out, 5 fingers spread wide, reaching for Izuku's face. Izuku reacted on pure instinct. He twisted in the air, using Blackwhip to yank himself downward, barely dodging the touch of death. But the shockwave of air from Shigaraki's palm grazed his shoulder, and the fabric of his suit disintegrated into gray dust. The decay didn't spread to his skin, but the force threw him off balance. Shigaraki didn't pursue. Instead, he looked down at the city. At the heroes. At the civilians still trapped in the evacuation zones. "I'm going to destroy it all," Shigaraki said, his voice echoing with a dual resonance, his own rasp and a deeper, smoother baritone that made Izuku's blood freeze. "All for one. This society that rejects me, this trash heap of false idols. Let it all turn to dust." He raised his hands, preparing to touch the ground. If he did, a wave of decay would sweep out for miles. Everyone would die. Endeavor. Bakugo. Todoroki. Aizawa. Everyone. "Move," Izuku commanded his broken legs. "Move!" He kicked off the air, pushing one for all beyond 100%. He felt the bones in his right arm creak, threatening to shatter. He didn't care. He cocked his fist back, the energy gathering in a swirling vortex around his knuckles. This had to be the end. He had to hit Shigaraki so hard that he never woke up. Smash! Izuku closed the distance in a millisecond. Shigaraki looked up, eyes widening. He was vulnerable. He was open. The regenerative quirks hadn't fully kicked in yet. A direct hit to the head with 100% of one for all would liquefy his skull. It would kill him instantly. "Do it!" The voice of the second user roared in the back of Izuku's mind. "Kill him! End this nightmare. He is too dangerous to live!" The third user shouted, his presence a burning spike of rage. "Strike him down, ninth! If he touches the ground, millions die!" Nana Shimura's voice was weeping, but her will was iron. "I'm sorry, Tenko. Izuku, you have to kill him." The pressure of 8 generations of heroes pushed against Izuku's back. They were the judge, the jury, and he was the executioner. The logic was flawless. The math was simple. One life for thousands, a monster for a future. Izuku's fist flew forward, a meteor aimed at Shigaraki's face. The air screamed as it parted. Time seemed to slow. The world turned into a crawl. Izuku could see the pores on Shigaraki's skin, the cracks in his lips, the white hair matted with blood, and he saw the eyes. They weren't the eyes of the symbol of fear. They weren't the eyes of all for one. For a terrifying, heart-stopping nanosecond, the red malice faded. Deep within the pupil, buried under layers of trauma, hatred, and manipulation, Izuku saw a reflection. He saw a small boy with black hair. A boy standing alone in a pile of dust, holding a photo of a family that didn't exist anymore. The boy was crying. He was screaming for someone, anyone, to hold his hand, to tell him it was okay. "It hurts," the eyes said. "Save me." The image of the crying child slammed into Izuku with more force than any punch All Might had ever thrown. It winded him. It pierced through the armor of rage and adrenaline he had built up. Killing him is not saving him. Gran Torino's words. They floated through the chaos of the vestige world, quiet but deafening. If I kill him... Izuku's mind raced, faster than the lightning surrounding him. If I kill him, I kill the victim too. I kill the boy who was failed by this society. I become just another part of the system that created him. I become the violence I'm trying to stop. One for All was a power meant to save. It was a power meant to protect. If he used it to execute a broken man, what made him different from All for One, who used power to dictate life and death? "Do it, ninth!" The second user screamed. Izuku's fist was inches from Shigaraki's nose. The sheer pressure was already peeling the skin back from the villain's face. "No!" Izuku gritted his teeth so hard a molar cracked. He screamed, not a battle cry, but a cry of agonizing exertion. He pulled the punch. It defied physics. It defied logic. At 100% speed, the momentum should have been unstoppable. But Izuku twisted his entire body, wrenching his shoulder out of its socket, forcing the energy to disperse sideways. The fist didn't connect. Instead of a sickening crunch of bone, there was a deafening boom as the displaced air hammered into Shigaraki, not piercing him, but slamming him like a wall of wind. The vestige world fell into a stunned, horrified silence. In the real world, the sudden stop of momentum tore through Izuku. His muscles shredded. Blood burst from the capillaries in his arm. He gasped, his eyes wide, staring directly into Shigaraki's bewildered face. They floated there for a second that felt like an eternity. fist hovering beside the face. Hero and villain. Shigaraki blinked. The fear in his eyes vanished, replaced by confusion, and then, a dawning, terrible realization. You! Shigaraki whispered. He saw it. He saw the hesitation. He saw the mercy. And deeper inside, the consciousness of all for one saw the opportunity. You weak, foolish child, the voice of the demon lord echoed from Shigaraki's mouth. Before Izuku could recoil, before he could ready a second attack, Shigaraki's hand moved. It didn't decay him. It was a simple, brutal application of the rivet stab quirk combined with a kinetic booster. Black tendrils with red glowing tips erupted from Shigaraki's fingers, spearing through Izuku's left shoulder and thigh. Gah! Izuku screamed, the pain blinding him. You had the shot, Shigaraki hissed, his face morphing into a sneer of triumph. You could have ended it. But you're just like All Might. Bound by your pathetic morals. Shigaraki didn't just stab, he blasted. A shockwave of air cannon exploded from his palm, centered on Izuku's chest. Izuku was launched backward as if fired from a cannon. He crashed through one skyscraper, then another, the concrete shattering against his spine. He finally slammed into the asphalt of a street 3 blocks away, bouncing and skidding until he hit a wrecked bus, crumpling into a heap of broken limbs and green sparks. DKU! Bakugo's scream tore through the comms, filled with panic. High in the air, Shigaraki stabilized himself. He looked at his hands. He was alive. He was breathing. The boy had spared him. Why? The thought bubbled up from Tenko Shimura, unbidden. Because he is weak, All for One answered in his mind. Because he lacks the conviction to do what is necessary. That is why they will lose. Shigaraki looked down at the city. The heroes were scrambling toward where Deku had fallen. The opportunity to destroy everything was still there, but his body was failing. The near-death experience, the accumulated damage, and the internal war with All for One were taking their toll. His skin was cracking faster than it could heal. Master, Gigantomachia's voice boomed from the edge of the city. The giant had arrived, plowing through buildings like they were cardboard. Machia, Shigaraki rasped. He felt the pull of the retreat. He couldn't wipe out the city now. He was overheating. If he used the massive decay wave now, his own body would crumble to dust. He looked one last time toward the plume of dust where Izuku Midoriya lay. Next time, hero, Shigaraki muttered. I won't hesitate. He dropped from the sky, landing on Gigantomachia's back. The giant turned, roaring, and began the retreat, the near Hyans swarming around them to cover the escape. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. It was the silence of failure. Izuku lay in the rubble, staring up at the violet sky. His body was broken, but the physical pain was a dull thrum compared to the screaming inside his mind. You let him go. The second user's voice was cold, detached. You had him. And you let him go. He's going to kill again, the third added. Izuku. Nana's voice was soft, trembling. Why? Izuku couldn't answer. He coughed, blood spattering the inside of his mask. He tried to move his arm, but it was useless. He felt tears leaking from his eyes, mixing with the grime on his face. Deku! The sound of explosions signaled his arrival. Katsuki Bakugo landed hard, kicking up a cloud of dust. He didn't look injured, or at least, he was ignoring it. He scrambled over the debris, sliding to his knees beside Izuku. Nerd! Get up! Bakugo yelled, his hands hovering over Izuku, afraid to touch him and cause more damage. We have to go. He's getting away. We can still catch him if we... Bakugo stopped. He looked at Izuku's face. He saw the tears. And then, his sharp combat instincts replayed the last 10 seconds of the battle. He had been watching. He had seen the setup. The 100% charge. The open shot. And he had seen the punch veer off course. Bakugo's expression shifted from concern to a terrifying, quiet intensity. You stopped, Bakugo said. It wasn't a question. Izuku squeezed his eyes shut. Kaken, you stopped, Bakugo repeated, his voice rising. I saw you. You had a clear shot at his head. You could have blown his brains out. You stopped. I saw him. Izuku whispered, his voice cracking. I saw the child. The child? Bakugo exploded. He grabbed Izuku by the collar of his ruined suit, shaking him despite the injuries. There is no child. That is Shigaraki. That is the monster who turned this city into a graveyard. Look around you, Deku. Look at the fire. Look at the dead. Bakugo pointed violently toward the smoking ruins of Jaka City. Endeavor is down. Sensei is maimed. Gran Torino might be dead. And you had the chance to end it, and you saw a child? He was crying. Izuku sobbed, the guilt crashing down on him. I couldn't just kill him. Not like that. Not when he was afraid. Bakugo stared at him, his red eyes wide with disbelief. He let go of Izuku's collar, shoving him back against the wreckage. He stood up, running a hand through his spiked hair, pacing back and forth. You think you're a god? Bakugo spat. You think you can save everyone? Even the devil? I have to try, Izuku said, forcing himself to sit up despite the screaming protest of his spine. That's what One for All is for. To save people. That power is for winning. Bakugo roared. It's to stop the bad guys so the good guys can live. You think sparing him makes you a hero? It makes you an accomplice to whatever he does next. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Bakugo. Midoriya. Shoto Todoroki arrived, sliding on a path of ice. He looked frantic. Medical transport is coming. The villains, they're gone. Makia took Shigaraki and ran. They escaped, Bakugo said, his voice flat. He didn't look at Todoroki. He kept his eyes on Izuku. Because the number one hero decided to show mercy. Bakugo, stop, Todoroki said, confused. Midoriya is hurt. We're all hurt. Bakugo shouted. But the war isn't over because he didn't finish it. Izuku looked at his hands. They were trembling uncontrollably. He remembered the feeling of the wind on his knuckles when he pulled the punch. He remembered Shigaraki's eyes. He knew Bakugo was right. Logically, tactically, Bakugo was right. By sparing Shigaraki, Izuku had condemned the world to more fear, more death. But in his heart, in the deepest part of his soul where the embers of One for All burned, he knew he couldn't have done it differently. If I killed him, Izuku thought, I would have lost One for All. Not the quirk. But the meaning. But as the sirens began to wail in the distance, and the smoke of the burning city blotted out the sun, Izuku realized that the price of his soul might be the world. 2 hours later. The temporary medical camp. The atmosphere was not one of relief. It was a funeral wake. The medical tents were overflowing. Heroes, sidekicks, and civilians lay in rows on cots, groaning in pain. The air smelled of antiseptic and burnt flesh. Izuku sat on the edge of a cot, his arms wrapped in thick casts, his chest bandaged. Recovery Girl had kissed him, but her energy was depleted. She could only stabilize him, not heal him fully. He felt hollowed out. He could feel the eyes on him. Word travels fast among heroes. The drone footage from the news helicopters had captured the climax of the battle. It was grainy, zoomed in from miles away, but it was clear enough. The green hero had the villain dead to rights. And then, nothing. Hawks walked into the tent. His wings were gone, burned away by Dabi. He looked smaller, frilier, but his eyes were sharp as flint. Beside him walked a representative from the Hero Public Safety Commission, a man in a pristine suit that looked out of place amidst the gore and Endeavor. The number one hero was heavily bandaged, leaning on a wall for support, but his burning gaze was fixed on Izuku. Midoriya, Endeavor said. His voice was a low rumble. Izuku stood up, swaying slightly. Endeavor-san. Is it true? Endeavor asked. No preamble. Did you hesitate? The tent went silent. Other students from Class 1A, Uraraka, Ida, Tsuyu, stopped what they were doing to listen. Izuku swallowed the lump in his throat. He looked at Endeavor. He looked at the commission agent. I didn't hesitate, Izuku said softly. Then why is Shigaraki alive? The commission agent snapped. We had the trajectory analysis. A 100% smash at that angle would have been fatal. You pulled it. I chose not to kill him, Izuku corrected. You chose? The agent stepped forward, his face reddening. Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know how many people died today? Midnight is missing. Crust is dead. The city is gone. And you chose to spare the architect of this destruction? He was possessed, Izuku said, his voice gaining a tremor of strength. All for one was controlling him. But for a second, I saw the person inside. I saw Tenko Shimura. Tenko Shimura is a mass murderer, Hawks said. His tone wasn't angry, just exhausted. Kid, I get it. We're heroes. We save people. But some people, they're past saving. I had to kill twice. I didn't want to. But I did it because if I didn't, he would have overrun the country. Hawks looked at his own empty back, where his wings used to be. You have the power of all might, Hawks continued. With that power comes the responsibility to make the hard calls. Today you flinched. I didn't flinch, Izuku insisted, tears pricking his eyes again. I refuse to become a murderer. If we just kill them because they're dangerous, how are we different? How does that stop the cycle? The cycle? The commission agent scoffed. This isn't a philosophy class, boy. This is war. And in war, when you have the enemy commander at your mercy, you strike. Because you didn't, Gigantomachia escaped. Because you didn't, the League is regrouping. The next time someone dies, a civilian, a friend of yours, that death is on your hands. The words hit Izuku like physical blows. He looked around the tent. He saw Uraraka, her hands covering her mouth, eyes wide with worry. He saw Ida, looking down at the floor, conflicted. He saw All Might. Tashinori Yagi stood at the entrance of the tent. He looked skeletal, a ghost in a yellow suit. He was leaning against the tent pole, staring at Izuku. There was no smile on his face. All Might. Izuku whispered. All Might closed his eyes and bowed his head. He didn't say a word. He didn't rush over to comfort him. He didn't say, "You did the right thing, my boy." The silence from his mentor broke Izuku's heart more than Shigaraki's attack ever could. You are confined to this camp until further notice, the commission agent said coldly. The HPSC will decide how to handle this. But let me be clear, Yui produces heroes, not sympathizers. The agent turned and left. Endeavor lingered for a moment, shaking his head, before limping away. Hawks gave Izuku a pitying look and followed. Izuku sank back onto the cot. He felt utterly, completely alone. The vestige world was tumultuous. They don't understand, Yoichi, the first user said gently. They don't see what we see. They see reality, the second user retorted. The boy failed. He put his own conscience above the safety of the world. Now we must deal with the consequences. Izuku tuned them out. He looked at his bandaged hands. Hands meant to save. Deku-kun. Uraraka approached him slowly. She reached out, touching his knee. Are you okay? I don't know, Uraraka-san, Izuku whispered. I don't know. Outside the tent, thunder rumbled. Rain began to fall, washing the soot and ash from the ruins of Jaka City. It was a black rain, heavy and cold. Somewhere in the darkness, Shigaraki was healing. Somewhere, All for One was planning. Izuku clenched his fist, the pain flaring up his arm. He had made his choice. He had refused to throw the final smash. He had chosen the harder path, the path of salvation over destruction. But as the cries of the wounded filled the night, Izuku Midoriya wondered if he was strong enough to walk it. The retreat was not a withdrawal, it was a hemorrhage. The Battle of Jaka City did not end with a bell or a whistle. It ended with the earth-shaking footsteps of Gigantomachia carving a canyon through the urban sprawl. The monstrous villain, carrying the unconscious body of Tamura Shigaraki and the remnants of the Paranormal Liberation Front, was a force of nature that the heroes, broken and scattered, could no longer stem. Izuku Midoriya lay on a stretcher, the rhythmic jostling sending spikes of white-hot agony through his shattered limbs. He was vaguely aware of the helicopter rotors slicing the air above him, a dull thrumming that failed to drown out the sounds from the ground below. Screams. The crashing of buildings. The roar of fire. He couldn't move his head. His neck was in a brace, his body strapped down to prevent further injury to his spine. All he could see was the ceiling of the medevac chopper, a sterile gray metal that felt like the lid of a coffin. Vitals are dropping again. Push 2 milligrams of epinephrine. Stabilize that leg. The bone is piercing the muscle. The paramedics were frantic, their voices tight with the panic that comes when trained professionals realize they are out of their depth. Izuku tried to speak, to ask who else was on the chopper, but his throat was raw, tasting of copper and ash. Shigaraki got away. The thought was a parasite, burrowing deep into his brain. He got away because I let him. Izuku closed his eyes, and immediately the image was there. The split second frozen in time. The red eyes. The crying child. The fist that stopped. Then, a new sound cut through the haze of his consciousness. A voice over the pilot's radio, distorted but audible enough to shatter his heart. This is Team Edge shot to command. We have located Midnight. Sector 4. Status is, Code Black. I repeat, status is Code Black. She's gone. The air in the helicopter seemed to vanish. Izuku's heart monitor began to wail, a high-pitched staccato that mirrored the sudden, violent spike in his blood pressure. Midnight-sensei? Tears leaked from the corners of his eyes, tracking hot paths through the grime on his face, soaking into the bandages around his ears. He wanted to scream, but he had no breath. He wanted to thrash, to break the straps, to run back to the city and find her, to prove the radio wrong. But he couldn't. He was broken. And somewhere, miles away, the monster he had spared was breathing. The central hospital, 14 hours later. The silence of the hospital wing was heavier than the noise of the battlefield. It was a suffocating, sterile silence, broken only by the hiss of oxygen tanks and the beep of monitors. The heroes had lost. It wasn't just a tactical defeat, it was a slaughter. The casualty report was still being compiled, but the rumors flying through the corridors were apocalyptic. Crust was dead. Midnight was dead. Majestic was dead. Hundreds of sidekicks and local heroes were unaccounted for, buried under the rubble of Jakku or the path of destruction Makia had cut through the prefectures. Izuku sat up in his hospital bed. It had taken him 10 minutes just to elevate the backrest. His arms were encased in heavy casts, suspended by pulleys. His legs were immobilized. He was a mummy of gauze and plaster. The door to his room slid open. It wasn't a doctor. It wasn't his mother. It was a suit. A man and a woman from the Hero Public Safety Commission walked in. They looked pristine, untouched by the dust and blood that coated everyone else in the building. Behind them walked Hawks. The number 2 hero looked like a bird that had been plucked and broken. His wings were gone, nothing but charred stumps on his back. His throat was bandaged heavily, likely from Dabi's flames. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes hidden behind his visor, but his posture screamed exhaustion. Midoriya Izuku, the woman said. She didn't introduce herself. She held a tablet in her hand. We are here to conduct a preliminary debriefing regarding the engagement with Tamura Shigaraki. Where are my friends? Izuku rasped. His voice was a wreck. Is everyone? Class 1A has sustained multiple injuries, but no fatalities, the man replied, his tone dismissive. We are not here to discuss your classmates. We are here to discuss the termination of the operation. The woman tapped the tablet. A holographic projection sprang up in the air at the foot of Izuku's bed. It was drone footage. High altitude, high definition. It showed the battlefield from above. It showed the green lightning of One for All tearing through the sky. It showed Izuku closing the distance on Shigaraki. We have analyzed this footage frame by frame, the woman said. Her voice was cold, clinical. At 14:02, you engaged the target. Shigaraki Tamura was temporarily quirk erased by Eraserhead. He was physically compromised. His regeneration was lagging. The video played. Izuku watched himself, a glowing comet of power. He saw his fist pull back. He saw the target lock. The trajectory analysis confirms a 98% probability of a lethal strike to the cranium, the man added. With the force you were outputting, calculated at 100% of your capacity, Shigaraki's skull would have collapsed instantly. The threat would have been neutralized. On the screen, the green hero stopped. The punch veered. The shockwave hit harmlessly. The woman paused the video. The image froze on the moment of hesitation. Why? She asked. Izuku looked at the freeze frame. He looked at the blur that was Shigaraki's face. He looked afraid, Izuku whispered. Afraid? The man scoffed. He is a mass murderer, Midoriya. He dusted half a city before you even got there. He killed Xless. He maimed your teacher. I know! Izuku cried out, the sudden exertion making his ribs ache. I know what he did. But in that moment, it wasn't him. It was the vestige of all for one controlling him. And underneath that, I saw a person. I saw a victim, the woman repeated, tasting the word like it was poison. So, to save one victim, you allowed him to escape. Do you know the consequences of that choice, Midoriya? She swiped on the tablet. New images appeared. This is the path Gigantomachia took to retrieve Shigaraki. Because Shigaraki was alive to call him, the giant rampaged for another 40 miles. Pictures of flattened neighborhoods. Crushed cars. Bodies covered in sheets. This is midnight, she said, showing a blurred photo of a familiar costume amidst rubble. She was ambushed by the advisors of the PLF while trying to stop Machia. If Shigaraki had been neutralized, the order to retreat would have been chaotic. Machia might have paused. The chain of command would have broken. Izuku stared at the tablet. Bile rose in his throat. You traded their lives, the man said, leaning in close. You made a transaction. You bought Shigaraki's life with the lives of these people. Was it worth it? Stop it, Hawks said. His voice was raspy, barely a whisper. The commission agents turned to look at him. He's a kid, Hawks said, pushing himself off the doorframe. He's 16 years old. You're treating him like a defective drone. He holds one for all, the woman countered sharply. He is not a kid. He is the asset we rely on to stop All for One. If the asset malfunctions due to sentimentality, we have a problem. She turned back to Izuku. The official report will state that Shigaraki's quirks reactivated earlier than expected, forcing you to abort the strike. We cannot let the public know that their greatest hope refused to pull the trigger. Civil unrest is already at a tipping point. You're going to lie? Izuku asked, his eyes wide. We are going to manage the narrative, the man corrected. But we know, Midoriya. And you know. Next time, if there is a next time, you will not be given the option to choose. The HPSC is classifying Shigaraki as a kill-on-sight target. If you engage him again, you end him. Do you understand? Izuku looked down at his casted hands. He felt the phantom sensation of the crying child reaching out to him. I can't promise that, Izuku said softly. The room went deadly silent. The woman narrowed her eyes. Then you are of no use to us. She grabbed the tablet. Let's go. The agents marched out. Hawks lingered for a moment. He looked at Izuku with an expression that was hard to read, part pity, part frustration. They're wrong about the way they're handling this, Hawks rasped. But kid, they're not wrong about the math. Being a hero means dirtying your hands so others can keep theirs clean. If you're not ready for the mud, you shouldn't be in the pit. Hawks turned and left, the automatic door sliding shut with a finality that echoed in Izuku's soul. The waiting room, Class 1A. The waiting room of the surgical ward was a tableau of misery. Class 1A, usually a vibrant kaleidoscope of personalities, was reduced to a gray huddle of traumatized children. They were still in their hero costumes, now ripped, burnt, and blood-stained. Mina Ishido sat in the corner, her knees pulled to her chest. She was shaking. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Gigantomachia. She saw the vial of sedative slipping from her fingers. She felt the paralyzing terror that had frozen her in place. I couldn't do it. I froze. And because I froze, Kirishima sat next to her, his hardening deactivated, his skin covered in bruises. He had his arm around her, but he was staring at the floor, his eyes hollow. He had thrown the vial. He had succeeded where she failed. But it hadn't been enough. Momo Yayorozu was pacing. She had created cannons, sedatives, shields. She had led the team. And yet Majestic was dead. Midnight was dead, they're saying. Kaminari started, his voice trembling. He stopped, unable to finish the sentence. They're saying Midoriya let him go, Ciro finished for him. Ciro was slumped in a chair, holding an ice pack to his head. That's a lie, Uraraka said instantly. She was standing near the vending machine, her face swollen from crying. Deku wouldn't do that. You saw him. He was fighting harder than anyone. I saw the news, Ochako, Sato muttered. He sounded angry. It was a rare tone for him. Someone leaked the drone feed. It's all over the internet. Twitter is melting down. He stopped. He had him, and he stopped. Maybe he couldn't hit him, Tsuyu suggested, though her voice lacked conviction. Maybe he was hurt. He was at 100%, Shoji rumbled. We could feel the pressure from miles away. If he missed, it was on purpose. Why would he do that? Mineta squeaked, tears bubbling in his eyes. Why would he save the bad guy? Because he's Midoriya, Todoroki said. Everyone turned to look at him. Shoto was leaning against the wall, his left side bandaged, his face unreadable. He had seen his father crumble. He had seen his brother reveal himself as a monster. The Todoroki family was the epicenter of the tragedy, yet Shoto seemed the most composed. He doesn't see villains as targets, Todoroki said quietly. He sees people. Even when it's stupid. Even when it's dangerous. It's not just dangerous. Sato snapped, standing up. It cost us Midnight Sensei. If Shigaraki had died right there, Makia would have stopped. The orders would have stopped. Sensei might still be alive, Sato. Ida barked. The class rep was sitting stiffly, his engines dented, his glasses cracked. Compose yourself. Turning on Midoriya will not bring her back. But it's true! Sato yelled, tears streaming down his face. We put our lives on the line. We fought that giant. And Midoriya, the one with the strongest quirk, the one All Might chose. He decides to play pacifist at the last second? How is that fair? The room fell silent. The accusation hung heavy in the air. It was the elephant in the room that no one wanted to acknowledge. They all loved Izuku. They respected him, but they were grieving, and grief needed a target. Where is Bakugo? Kirishima asked quietly, looking around. He woke up from surgery an hour ago, Ida said. The nurses said he forced his way out of bed. I couldn't stop him. Oh no, Uraraka whispered. Izuku's room. Izuku was staring at the ceiling, counting the tiles. 104. 105. If he counted tiles, he didn't have to think about the faces of the dead. The door didn't slide open this time. It was kicked open. The lock shattered with a metallic clang, and the door rebounded off the stopper. Bakugo Katsuki stood in the doorway. He looked like a corpse that had refused to stay buried. He was wearing a hospital gown that was too small for his broad shoulders. His chest was wrapped in thick bandages where the black tendrils had pierced him. He was leaning heavily on an enforced stand, using it like a crutch. His breathing was ragged, a wet, rattling sound that indicated his lungs were still healing. Keikaken, Izuku stammered. You shouldn't be walking. Your wounds. Bakugo didn't speak. He dragged himself into the room, the wheels of the forced stand squeaking on the linoleum. He stopped at the foot of Izuku's bed. His eyes were bloodshot, glowing with a mixture of fury and something that looked terrifyingly like fear. Tell me, Bakugo rasped. Kaken, please, you need to go back to. Tell me. Bakugo roared. The effort made him cough, a violent spasm that bent him double. He hacked up something red into his hand, wiped it on his gown, and glared back at Izuku. Tell me you missed, Bakugo wheezed. Tell me your body gave out. Tell me the quirk slipped. Tell me anything, Deku. Just don't tell me you did it on purpose. Izuku looked at his childhood friend. He looked at the boy who had bullied him, the boy who had rivaled him, and finally, the boy who had taken a stab wound meant for him. Bakugo had sacrificed himself to give Izuku the opening, and Izuku had wasted it. I can't lie to you, Kaken, Izuku whispered. Bakugo's grip on the four-pole tightened until the metal groaned. I saw him, Izuku said, tears spilling over. I was going to kill him. I wanted to kill him. But then, I saw the crying child inside him. The vestige world showed me. He was scared. He was alone. And Gran Torino, he said, killing isn't saving. If I killed him, I would have just been cleaning up AFO's mess, not solving the problem. Bakugo stared at him. For a long moment, there was no sound but the hum of the ventilation. Then Bakugo moved. He lunged forward, ignoring his injuries, and grabbed the front of Izuku's hospital gown. He hauled Izuku up, bringing their faces inches apart. You self-righteous, arrogant, Suicidal idiot! Bakugo screamed, shaking him. Kaken, stop! Izuku gasped, pain flaring in his broken arms. I took a hole in my gut for you! Bakugo yelled, his voice cracking. I watched Sensei cut his own leg off. I watched Endeavor burn himself alive. We did all of that to get you to him, to get you to the finish line. And you stopped? I couldn't kill a defenseless soul. He isn't defenseless. Bakugo shoved Izuku back onto the pillows. He is death. He is a walking plague. There is no child inside him, Deku. That's just your brain trying to justify your weakness. Bakugo paced the small room, dragging the four-pole. He was manic, fueled by adrenaline and painkillers. You think you're better than us? Bakugo spat. You think because you have All Might's power, you get to decide who lives and who dies? You saved one villain, Deku. One, and because of that, how many innocent people are dead tonight? Did you save them? Did you save Midnight? Izuku flinched as if struck. Don't. She's dead! Bakugo screamed. She's dead because Makia didn't stop. And Makia didn't stop because Shigaraki was still awake to call him. That is on you. That blood is on your hands, not the villain's. I know! Izuku screamed back, breaking down completely. He sobbed, his chest heaving. I know! It's all my fault! I know! Bakugo stopped pacing. He looked at Izuku sobbing in the bed. The anger didn't leave his eyes, but it changed. It curdled into a deep, profound disappointment. You want to save everyone, Bakugo said, his voice dropping to a low, trembling growl. You have this sickness in your head where you think if you reach out your hand, everyone will take it. But the world doesn't work like that. Bakugo walked to the door. He paused, his hand on the frame. I used to hate you because I thought you looked down on me, Bakugo said quietly. Now I'm just scared of you. Izuku looked up through his blurred vision. Scared? Yeah, Bakugo said. He didn't look back. Because your kindness is going to get us all killed. You're not a symbol of peace, Deku. You're a liability. Bakugo walked out. The inner world. Izuku couldn't sleep. The pain meds made him drowsy, but his mind was a storm. He closed his eyes and sank into the void. The vestige world was usually a place of mist and shadow, but tonight it felt like a courtroom. The users were arranged in a circle around him. Nana Shimura was crying. She had her face buried in her hands. I'm sorry, she kept whispering. I'm so sorry, Tashinori. I'm sorry, Izuku. I couldn't protect him. The fifth user, Banjo, was looking at the ground, his arms crossed. But the second and third users were standing tall, their backs turned to Izuku. They were facing the wall of the void, radiating cold fury. Look at him, the second user's voice echoed, not directed at Izuku but at the others. He weeps for himself. He does not weep for the future he destroyed. Second, please, Yoichi, the first user, interjected. His voice was gentle, but frail. He made a choice born of empathy. That is the core of One for All. Empathy without resolve is just vanity. The second user spun around. He had a scar running down his face, and his eyes were hard as flint. We passed this power down through blood and death to destroy All for One. We did not pass it down to play therapist with his puppet. He pointed a finger at Izuku. You had the shot, ninth. You had the power. But you lack the will. You are unworthy. Stop it! Nana looked up, her eyes fierce. He saw Tenko. He saw my grandson. If there is a chance, there is no chance. The third user shouted. The boy you knew is dead, Nana. There is only Shigaraki. And now, thanks to this child's hesitation, Shigaraki will become the perfect vessel. We are doomed. Izuku stood in the center of them, his mental avatar looking small and indistinct. I couldn't do it, Izuku said to them. I know you're angry. I know I failed you. But One for All is a power given, not taken. It's a power to help. If I use it to execute someone who is screaming for help, then the power is cursed. The world is not black and white, kid, Banjo said softly. But today was pretty gray. And a lot of good people paid for it. The vision faded. The users retreated into the mist, leaving Izuku alone in the dark. The decision. Morning came with a gray, lifeless light. Izuku watched the news on the small TV in his room. The sound was off, but the captions were enough. Hero society crumbles, public outrage over the unthroned smash, uprising in 12 prefectures, villains escape mass prison break. It was happening. The dam had broken. The villains were emboldened. The public had lost faith. Izuku looked at the drawer next to his bed. His phone had been buzzing non-stop. Hundreds of messages. Some from classmates, asking if he was okay. Some from friends, but he also saw the notifications from social media. Death threats. Traitor. Coward. Fake hero. The world hated him. Not because he was weak, but because he was merciful. He thought about what the HPSC agent had said. We will manage the narrative. They would try to spin it. They would lie. And they would turn him into a weapon for the next fight. They would force him to kill Shigaraki next time. I can't stay here, Izuku realized. The thought was terrifying, but it settled into his bones with the weight of truth. If I stay at UA, I put Class 1A in danger. The villains will come for me. The public will hate them by association. If I stay under the commission, I become their executioner. And if I stay with All Might, I will just remind him of his failure. He had to go. He had to find Shigaraki. Not to kill him, but to save him. He had to finish what he started, but on his own terms. He had to prove that his mercy wasn't a mistake. Izuku gritted his teeth. He activated One for All, channeling it into his broken limbs. The pain was excruciating. It felt like walking on glass. He ripped the IVs from his arms. He undid the straps on his legs. He stumbled to the wardrobe where they had put his spare clothes. He didn't put on the UE uniform. He put on a simple hoodie and cargo pants. He found his yellow backpack. He grabbed a notepad from the bedside table. His hands shook as he wrote, "To All Might, I'm sorry. I know I let you down. I know I let everyone down. But I can't be the symbol of peace you wanted. A symbol of peace smiles and wins. I didn't win, but I saw something in Shigaraki. I saw a person. And as long as that person exists, I can't kill him. I have to save him. Even if the world hates me for it, don't look for me. I'm not running away from the fight. I'm going to finish it. Thank you for everything, Izuku." He tore the page out and left it on the pillow. He went to the window. It was on the 4th floor. He opened it, letting the cold, wet wind hit his face. He looked back at the door one last time. He thought of Uraraka's smile. He thought of Ida's hand chops. He thought of Bakugo's tears. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Green lightning flickered around his body. He stepped onto the ledge, and then, Izuku Midoriya disappeared into the gray morning, leaving the Heroes Society he had broken behind him. The internet did not sleep. It did not mourn. It consumed. In the 48 hours following the devastation of Jaka's city, the flow of information was a torrent of panic and confusion. The official narrative was struggling to take hold. The Hero Public Safety Commission HPSC had issued statement after statement. Technical difficulties. Unforeseen quirk awakenings. A tactical retreat to minimize casualties. They were trying to build a dam against the truth. But the truth is like water. It finds the cracks. It started on a fringe forum, a dark corner of the web usually reserved for conspiracy theorists and quirk supremacists. A user with the handle Inquisitor_0 uploaded a file. It wasn't a manifesto. It was raw, unedited data ripped from a damaged HPSC surveillance drone that had crashed in the exclusion zone. The file name was simply the_unthrown_smash.mp4. Within 10 minutes, it had 1,000 views. Within an hour, 1,000,000. By the time the sun rose over a Japan choking on smoke and grief, the video was playing on every smartphone, tablet, and news screen in the country. The footage was high definition and eerily silent. It showed the green lightning of the hero Deku tearing through the sky. It showed the villain Shigaraki, broken, bloodied, and suspended in midair, defenseless. It showed the wind-up, the terrifying accumulation of power that warped the air around Deku's fist. And then, it showed the stop. It showed the fist halting inches from the villain's face. It showed the hesitation. It showed the subsequent counterattack that blasted the hero away and allowed the villain to escape. The caption under the viral clip was not a question. It was a verdict. He had the shot. He let him go. Your family is dead because he flinched. UA High School, Heights Alliance dorms. The common room of the Class 1A dorms was usually a place of laughter, studying, and the smell of Sato's baking. Now it was a bunker. The blast shutters were down. The lights were dimmed. The students who weren't in critical condition were gathered around the large television. Nobody was speaking. The air was thick with a mixture of antiseptic from their bandages and the cold sweat of fear. On the screen, a news anchor was shouting over the roar of a crowd. Protests have erupted outside the HPSC headquarters and UA High School. The public is demanding answers regarding the identity of the student known as Deku. Sources confirm that this student, widely considered All Might's successor, had a clear opportunity to terminate the threat of Tamura Shigaraki. The screen cut to an interview with a woman standing in front of a refugee shelter. Her clothes were torn, her face soot-stained. She was holding a framed photo of an elderly couple. My parents couldn't run fast enough, the woman sobbed, shaking the photo at the camera. The giant. Makia, he crushed our house. If the heroes had stopped the leader, the giant would have stopped. He had him. I saw the video. Why did he save the monster and let my parents die? Mineta trembled, pulling a blanket tighter around his shoulders. They hate us. They actually hate us. They're scared, Ribbit, as she said, though her voice wavered. She was staring at her phone, scrolling through comment sections that were a wall of vitriol. Traitor. Coward. Villain sympathizer. Fear makes people say terrible things. It's not just fear. Sato shouted, slamming a fist onto the coffee table. The sudden noise made everyone jump. It's facts. We watched it. We were there. We were fighting for our lives against the Hyans, waiting for the signal that Shigaraki was down. And the signal never came. Sato, sit down, Ida ordered. The class representative was standing by the window, peering through the slats of the shutters at the angry mob gathering at the school gates. His arm was in a sling, and his face was gaunt. Don't tell me to sit down. Sato stood up, his large frame shaking. Midoriya is supposed to be the best of us. He's the one who always breaks his bones to save people. So why, when it mattered most, did he freeze? He didn't freeze, Uraraka said. She was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. Her eyes were red and puffy, but her voice was steady. He didn't freeze, she repeated, looking up at Sato. He made a choice. A bad choice. Kaminari interjected, his voice high and panicked. A choice that got Midnight Sensei killed. A choice that destroyed a city. We don't know what he saw, Todoroki said quietly from the corner. Half his face was covered in bandages. Shigaraki isn't just a villain to Midoriya. He's complex. Complex? Ojiro scoffed, clutching his tail. He's a mass murderer, Todoroki. There's nothing complex about Dust. The room descended into shouting. The unity of Class 1A, forged in the fires of the USJ and the training camps, was fracturing under the weight of public scrutiny and their own trauma. Suddenly, the front door of the dorms beeped and slid open. The room went silent instantly. Aizawa Shota rolled in. He was in a wheelchair, pushed by Present Mike. One of his legs was missing below the knee. His eye, the one that wasn't covered by a patch, was dull and tired. Sensei, Yaoyorozu gasped, stepping forward. Sit, Aizawa rasped. His voice was a shadow of its former authority, but it still commanded the room. The students sat. The media is a vulture, Aizawa said, looking at each of them. They feed on carrion. Right now, the reputation of heroes is dead, so they are feasting. Do not feed them. But Sensei, Kirishima asked, is it true? About Midoriya? Aizawa closed his single eye for a moment. The HPSC has classified the details of the engagement. But Midoriya is currently listed as AWOL from the Central Hospital. AWOL? Uraraka stood up. He ran away? He left against medical advice, Present Mike said, his usual loudness replaced by a somber tone. We don't know where he is. But the commission has issued a warrant. Not for arrest, technically, but for protective custody. That means imprisonment, Bakugo's voice growled from the back of the room. Everyone turned. Bakugo was leaning against the kitchen counter. He hadn't spoken since the argument began. He looked worse than any of them, pale, sweaty, held together by painkillers and rage. They want to lock him in a box until they can wind him up and point him at the next target, Bakugo said. They don't care that he has a conscience. They just want their weapon back. Kaken, Uraraka whispered. Do you know where he is? Bakugo scoffed, looking away. The nerd? He's doing the only thing he knows how to do. He's trying to fix it. The vestige world. Izuku Midoriya was not in a physical place. His body was huddled in the maintenance sub-basement of a condemned office building in Tokyo, shivering from fever and exhaustion. But his mind was deep within the core of One for All. It was a storm. Usually, the vestige realm was a void of mist and stars. Now, it was a tempest of conflicting emotions and roaring winds. Izuku stood on a floating platform of obsidian. Before him stood the previous users. The second user, the leader of the resistance against All for One during the Dark Ages, stepped forward. His face, scarred and grim, was twisted in a scowl of absolute rejection. He wore gauntlets that looked like weapons of war, not tools of rescue. You are a fool, Ninth, the second user's voice boomed like a cannon shot. You had the enemy of humanity at your mercy. You held the sword of Damocles, and you refused to let it fall. He was afraid, Izuku argued. His avatar in this world was small, glowing faintly green. I felt it through the quirk. I saw the child inside him. The child is dead. The third user shouted, stepping up beside the second. Consumed by the monster. Do you think All for One cared about children when he hunted us down? When he slaughtered our friends? We passed this power through blood and death so that one day, someone could end him. Not save him. End him. The pressure from the two ancient users was crushing. They represented a time when heroism was not a career, but a desperate insurgency. They did not take prisoners. They killed or were killed. Please stop, Nana Shimura wept. She was on her knees, her cape pooling around her like a shroud. She looked at Izuku with eyes full of heartbreak. It's my fault, she sobbed. I created that monster. I abandoned Tenko. And now I burden you with my sin, Izuku. You saw my grandson, didn't you? I did, Izuku said softly, stepping toward her. He was crying, Nana. He was calling for his mother. Then you should have sent him to her. The second user roared. Death would have been a mercy. Now, because of your hesitation, he is fully under All for One's control. You didn't save the boy, Midoriya. You condemned him to a living hell. The logic struck Izuku like a physical blow. Was that true? Was living as a puppet of AFO worse than death? Yoichi, the first user, sat quietly on a chair made of light. He had been silent this whole time. Now he looked up. My brother, Yoichi said softly, thrives on hatred. He thrives on the binary of hero and villain. If you had killed Shigaraki in anger, if you had crushed his skull while he was afraid, you would have stained One for All with the same darkness that fuels All for One. Idealism won't save the world first. The third user snapped. Perhaps, Yoichi replied. But murder will not save the soul of this power. The ninth made a choice. It was the hardest choice anyone has ever made holding this quirk. He chose love over duty. And look where it got us. The second user gestured to the swirling storm around them, showing flashes of the real world, the burning cities, the angry mobs. The world is burning because of his love. Izuku looked at the chaotic visions. He saw the protesters at UA. He saw the hate comments. He saw the disappointment in All Might's eyes. I am not All Might, Izuku said. The words were quiet, but they stopped the argument. He looked at the second user. I am not a symbol of peace that stands above everyone, smiling and perfect. I can't just smash the problems away. He looked at Nana. And I won't kill a person who is asking for help, no matter what they've done. If One for All is just a quirk for killing, then I don't want it. The vestige world rumbled. The determination in Izuku's voice resonated with the core of the quirk. It wasn't the resolve of a soldier. It was the resolve of a savior. You are walking a lonely path, Kid Daigoro Banjo, the fifth user said, rubbing his bald head. The world wants an executioner. You want to be a redeemer. Those two things don't mix. I know, Izuku said. That's why I can't be a hero anymore. Not the kind they want. The vision faded. Izuku woke up in the cold, dark basement. His phone was buzzing. New alert. HPSC Priority Directive 104. Subject, Midoriya Izuku. Status, fugitive. Detained on sight. He stared at the screen. The heroes, the people he had worshipped his entire life, were now hunting him. He stood up. His legs screamed in protest, but he forced them to hold his weight. He had to go back to Yui one last time. He needed his gear. And he needed to say goodbye. Yui High School, 2 a.m. The rain was torrential. It battered the security walls of Yui, masking the sound of footsteps. The campus was on high alert. Security robots patrolled the perimeter. Searchlights swept the grounds. But Izuku knew this school better than anyone. He knew the blind spots in the sensors. He knew which cameras had a half-second lag. Moving with the stealth of a ghost, wrapped in a tattered gray hoodie, he slipped past the barrier. He didn't use full cowling. The lightning would give him away. He used pure athleticism and the danger sense quirk, which buzzed like a relentless bee in his skull, warning him of every camera and robot. He reached the Heights Alliance dorms. The building was dark. His classmates were asleep, or pretending to be. He scaled the side of the building, gripping the bricks with fingers that were still bruised purple. He reached his balcony on the second floor. The door was unlocked. He always left it unlocked. He slipped inside his room. It smelled like home. It smelled like old All Might posters and laundry detergent. It felt like a museum of a life he had already lost. He moved quickly. He opened his closet. His gamma suit was ruined, destroyed in the battle. But he had spare parts. He grabbed the Air Force gloves. He grabbed the iron saws. He pulled a box from under his bed. Inside was a yellow cape. Gran Torino's cape. It was slightly singed, a memento from the hospital that had been forwarded to him before he escaped. He wrapped the cape around his neck. It was heavy, smelling of dust and dried taiyaki. It felt like a mantle of responsibility. He went to his desk. He turned on the small lamp, shielding the light with his hand. He tore 3 pages from a notebook. The first letter was to his mother. Mom, don't worry. I'm eating. I'm warm. I have to go away for a while to fix a mistake. Please don't watch the news. I love you. The second letter was to Class 1A. Guys, I'm sorry. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But if I stay, the villains will come here. The media will tear you apart. I have to draw the fire away from you. Please keep getting stronger. The world needs you more than ever. The third letter. He stared at the blank page. His hand trembled. All Might. How do you say goodbye to your father figure? How do you tell him that his way, the way of the symbol of peace, wasn't enough? All Might, you told me that I could be a hero. You gave me everything. But in Jaku, I realized something. You saved the world by winning. You suppressed the evil with a smile. But you never saved the villains. You just defeated them. Shigaraki is the result of a society that waits for a hero to solve everything. If I kill him, I just reset the clock. Another Shigaraki will rise. I have to break the wheel. I'm going to save Tenko Shimura. Even if it kills me. Even if you can't forgive me, I am not returning One for All. I am taking it into the mud. Izuku. He folded the letters and placed them on his desk, weighing them down with his All Might action figure, the one from his childhood. He geared up. He pulled on his mid-gauntlets. He tightened the iron saws. He pulled the hood of his stealth suit. A prototype May had made him over his head. He looked like a villain. Dark. Ragged. Menacing. He turned to the balcony. Going somewhere, nerd? Izuku froze. He didn't turn around. He knew the voice. He knew the breathing pattern. Kaken, Izuku whispered. I knew you'd come back, Bakugo said. He was standing in the doorway of the bedroom, leaning on his crutch. He was silhouetted by the dim hallway light. You're too sentimental to leave without your toys. I can't stay, Kaken. The commission. I know about the commission, Bakugo interrupted. He stepped into the room, limping. They want to leash you. Make you their hitman. I won't kill him, Izuku said, finally turning to face Bakugo. The green lightning flickered around his eyes. I don't care what they say. I won't do it. I know, Bakugo said. He stopped a few feet away. He looked at Izuku, really looked at him. He saw the exhaustion, the dirt, the desperation. But he also saw the resolve. It wasn't the trembling resolve of the boy who cried at the entrance exam. It was the resolve of a man walking to his execution. You're making a mistake, Bakugo said. Trying to do this alone, it's suicide. You're going to burn out. You're going to die in a ditch somewhere, and Shigaraki will win. Maybe, Izuku admitted. But if I stay, I drag you all down with me. Look at the news, Kaken. They hate me. If I'm here, Yui is a target. We can take it. Bakugo hissed. We're Class 1A. We don't care about the extras. I do. Izuku's voice rose, cracking. I care. I can't let you get hurt because of my choices. This is my burden. One for all, it's mine to carry. Bakugo stared at him. His hands twitched, small explosions popping in his palms. He wanted to scream. He wanted to blast Izuku into the wall and force him to stay. He wanted to beat some sense into him, but he saw the look in Izuku's eyes. It was the same look All Might used to have. The look of Atlas holding up the sky, refusing to let anyone help. Bakugo relaxed his hands. He let out a shaky breath. You're an idiot, Bakugo said softly. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out something small and tossed it. Izuku caught it. It was a small, high-density nutritional bar. The kind Sato made. And a burner phone. Icy Hot figured you need a phone that can't be tracked, Bakugo muttered. And Ponytail made the battery. It won't die. You guys knew? We're not stupid, Deku. Bakugo looked at the floor. Get out of here. Before I change my mind and blow your legs off to keep you here. Izuku gripped the phone. Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't let them fall. Thank you, Kaken. Don't die, Bakugo said, turning his back. If you die, I'll kill you. Izuku smiled, a broken, sad smile. Goodbye, Kaken. He turned and leaped from the balcony. The streets, the rain was cold. Izuku landed in the alleyway behind the school, using Black Whip to cushion the impact. He pulled the yellow cape tight around his shoulders. He moved through the shadows of the city. The billboards that usually played ads for hero merchandise were now flashing emergency warnings and wanted posters. Wanted for questioning, DKU. He saw his own face, smiling from a Yui Sports Festival photo, plastered next to criminals like Muscular and Moonfish. He walked past an electronics store. A cluster of TVs in the window were playing the news. The HPSC has officially revoked the provisional license of Izuku Midoriya, the reporter said. He is considered a rogue element. Citizens are advised not to approach him. He is considered unstable and dangerous. Izuku stopped. He looked at his reflection in the wet glass. His suit was torn. His mask was ragged. The eyes of the costume glowed with a haunting, pale light. He didn't look like a hero. He looked like a specter. A group of civilians walked by, huddled under umbrellas. They saw him. Hey! One of them whispered. Is that? It's him, another hissed, fear in their eyes. The coward! Get away from us! A man shouted, pulling his child behind him. Don't bring the villains here! Go away! One of them picked up a stone from the gutter and threw it. It clattered harmlessly against Izuku's armored shin guard. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just looked at them with tired, sorrowful eyes. This is the world I saved, he thought. This is the society that created Shigaraki. A society that only loves you when you're winning, and casts you out when you show humanity. I'm sorry, Izuku whispered to the terrified family. He turned and fired a tendril of Black Whip onto a rooftop. He launched himself into the air, swinging away into the darkness. He was alone. The mentors in his head were silent, save for the hum of danger sense. The city below was a grid of hostility. His friends were behind him. His enemies were ahead of him. Izuku Midoriya landed on a gargoyle overlooking the chaotic city. He pulled the mask over his face. The metal respirator clicked into place, hiding his expression. He was no longer the student Deku. He was no longer the symbol of peace in training. He was the vigilante of the soul, and the hunt for Tamura Shigaraki had begun. The rain had not stopped for 60 days. It was a cold, relentless deluge that turned the ruins of society into a gray slurry of mud and concrete. The sky was perpetually overcast, a bruising charcoal ceiling that trapped the smoke of looting fires and the despair of a population abandoned by its gods. In the ward formerly known as Camino, now just a grid of shattered windows and silence, a group of 5 villains huddled around a burning trash can in an alleyway. They weren't big-time villains, they were jailbreakers, escapees from a low-security facility who had found freedom only to realize that freedom in a fallen world meant starvation. "I heard he was in Saitama yesterday," one of them muttered, warming his hands. His quirk gave him crab-like pincers, which clicked nervously. Tore through a gang of heteromorph haters. Broke all their guns. "Did he kill them?" asked a woman with snakes for hair. "Nah," the crab man spat into the fire. "That's the weird part. He tied them up. Used rebar like it was ribbon. Even dragged the injured ones under an awning so they wouldn't drown in the rain." "Bullshit," a third villain grunted. He was large, holding a rusted pipe. "The heroes are gone, man. The ones left are hitting hard." "Endeavor's crew? They're putting people in the ICU." "Hawks? He's executing. There ain't no kind heroes left." "I'm telling you, it's the green ghost," the crab man insisted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "He looks like a demon. Glowing eyes. Ragged cape. But he doesn't hit you hard. He catches you. It's creepy. If I see him," the large man boasted, swinging his pipe, "I'll crack his skull. He's probably just some UE dropout trying to play vigilante." Bzzzzzt. The sound wasn't loud, but it vibrated in their teeth. It was the sound of air being displaced by something moving faster than sound, stopping instantly. The fire in the trash can flickered and died, snuffed out by a sudden downdraft. The villains froze. Perched on a streetlight above them, crouched like a gargoyle, was a figure wrapped in shadow and grime. A yellow cape, heavy with water and mud, hung motionless in the sudden stillness. Iron saws gripped the metal. A hood was pulled low, and from the darkness of a metallic respirator, 2 eyes glowed with a toxic, emerald luminosity. "The green ghost," the snake woman whispered, trembling. The figure dropped. He didn't land with a superhero landing. He landed silently, the impact absorbed by his legs, barely splashing the puddle. He stood up slowly. He was covered in scars, his costume held together by duct tape and sheer will. "Get away from us!" the large man roared. Panic overrode logic. He swung the pipe with lethal force, aiming for the figure's head. A normal hero would have dodged. A brutal hero would have countered with a punch to the gut. Izuku Midoriya did neither. He stepped into the swing. He raised his left arm, not to block, but to catch. The pipe slammed into his forearm guard with a sickening clang. The metal guard dented. The bone beneath likely bruised instantly. But Izuku didn't flinch. His hand, wrapped in the tattered remains of an Air Force glove, gripped the pipe. "Please," Izuku said. His voice was distorted by the mask, raspy and dry, but terrifyingly soft. "Don't do this. Let go!" The man screamed, trying to yank the pipe back. He couldn't. It was like trying to pull a mountain. "You're hungry," Izuku stated. He looked at the other villains. "You're stealing because the supply chains are broken." "So what?" the snake woman hissed, though she was backing away. "You gonna arrest us?" "There are no prisons left." "No," Izuku said. With a twist of his wrist, he wrenched the pipe from the large man's grip. He bent the steel into a U shape effortlessly and dropped it into the mud. "I can't let you hurt civilians," Izuku said. "But I won't hurt you either. Die." The crabman lunged, his pincers snapping toward Izuku's neck. Black whip exploded from Izuku's back. But the tendrils didn't lash out like whips. They moved like gentle, firm snakes. They wrapped around the crabman's waist and arms, lifting him into the air. "Put me down! If I fight you, I'll break your shell," Izuku murmured, almost to himself. "I don't want to break your shell." He moved with a blur of speed, 5% full cowling, and moved among them. He tapped pressure points. He swept legs, but caught them before they hit the concrete. Within 10 seconds, all 5 villains were immobilized, tied together with black whip energy that solidified into a binding foam a gadget May had integrated into his gloves before he left. The large man was on the ground, struggling. He looked up, waiting for the finishing blow. Waiting for the boot to the face. Instead, the monster reached into a pouch on his belt. Izuku pulled out a handful of nutrient bars, stolen from a looted convenience store he had secured earlier. He placed them on the chest of the bound man. The shelter on 4th Street has a generator, Izuku said. The police there are overwhelmed, but they have food. If you go there and surrender, they'll feed you. The villains stared at him. This defied the laws of the street. This defied the war they were living in. Why? The large man asked, his voice shaking. You could have killed us. Izuku turned to leave. He looked exhausted. His shoulders were slumped under the weight of the rain. Because you're just people, Izuku whispered. He fired a black tendril to the rooftop and zipped away, disappearing into the storm, leaving the villains confused, fed, and alive. 2 hours later. An abandoned subway tunnel. Izuku sat on a broken bench, the yellow cape draped over his knees. He peeled off his left gauntlet. His forearm was a mess of purple and yellow bruising. The pipe had hit hard. He hadn't used hardening or 20% to tank it because the shockwave might have blown the starving villain backward into the brick wall. Absorption requires sacrifice, he thought dully. He opened a small first aid kit. It was running low on disinfectant. He poured the stinging alcohol over the bruise and wrapped it with gauze. You are an idiot, the voice of the second user echoed in his skull. It was sharp, clear, and angry. I handled it, Izuku muttered aloud, his voice echoing in the tunnel. You handled it by taking damage, the second retorted. That man tried to cave your skull in. If you had used a simple Delaware smash, you would have ended the fight in 0 seconds with 0 injury. And I would have broken his ribs, Izuku replied, biting the end of the bandage to tie it tight. He was just hungry. He wasn't evil. They are all evil when they hold a weapon. The second shouted. You are wearing yourself down, Ninth. You are running on fumes. Look at you. You haven't slept more than 2 hours a night for weeks. You refuse to eat properly. And in every fight, you act like a human shield instead of a warrior. I am a shield, Izuku said, putting the kit away. That's the point. No, the third user interjected, his voice deeper, more rumbling. A shield protects others. You are using your body to protect the villains from your own power. You are afraid of your own strength, boy. You are terrified that if you let go, you'll become a killer. I'm not afraid of the power, Izuku said, standing up. His knees popped. I'm afraid of what the power represents if I use it without mercy. If I become a tyrant who crushes anyone in his way, then Shigaraki was right about heroes. Shigaraki is laughing at you, the second spat. He is out there, gathering strength, while you play nursemaid to purse snatchers. Danger sense, the fourth user, Haikid Shinomori, whispered, cutting through the argument. Spike. Northeast. Izuku stiffened. The buzzing in his head wasn't the low hum of general malice. It was a sharp, piercing needle. Big? Izuku asked the void. Massive, the fourth replied. Murderous intent. Familiar. Izuku pulled his mask back up. The pain in his arm faded into the background, replaced by the cold focus of the hunt. The warehouse district. The building was shaking. Blood. I want blood. Show me your guts. Muscular, go to a Masuji, was back. He had broken out of Tartarus during the chaos, and he was arguably stronger than before. His muscle fibers had grown thicker, darker, vibrating with an uncontrollable energy. He was currently tearing through a warehouse where civilians were hiding. He wasn't even looking for anything specific. He just wanted to hear things break. Come out, little mice! Muscular roared, smashing a support pillar. The roof groaned. Or I'll bring the house down on top of you. A beam of concrete fell toward a group of huddled refugees. Smash! Green lightning illuminated the dark interior. Izuku intercepted the falling beam in midair, catching it on his back. He grunted under the weight, tons of concrete, and tossed it aside like a twig. He landed between Muscular and the civilians. Get out, Izuku commanded the civilians, not looking back. Run to the river. Go. They didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled away into the night. Muscular grinned. His artificial I word, zooming in on Izuku. Midoriya! Muscular laughed, spreading his arms. The fibers of his quirk erupted, wrapping him in a suit of impenetrable meat armor. I saw the news. They say you went soft. They say you couldn't finish the job. Go to, Izuku said. He didn't take a fighting stance. He stood with his hands open, palms out. Stand down. You don't have to do this. Ha! Muscular charged. The ground shattered under his step. He closed the distance in a blink. I don't have to. I want to. Battling is life. Killing is life. He threw a punch that could level a skyscraper. Izuku saw it coming in slow motion. He could have countered. He could have used FA gene to build up a kinetic charge and blasted a hole through Muscular's chest. He knew exactly where the fibers were thinnest, but he didn't. If he blasted him, Muscular would die. Or be crippled for life. Izuku engaged smokescreen. Purple smoke exploded, filling the warehouse. Muscular's punch hit empty air, creating a vacuum tunnel through the smoke. Hiding? Muscular roared, thrashing blindly. Coward! Izuku was floating above him, using Nana's quirk. He was silent. Restrain him, Izuku thought. Bind him. He unleashed Black Whip. 10 tendrils shot down, wrapping around Muscular's limbs. Gotcha! Muscular yelled. He didn't try to break free, he pulled. He yanked on the whips, dragging Izuku out of the air. Izuku came crashing down. He twisted, landing on Muscular's shoulder. Let's dance! Muscular shouted. He grew spikes of muscle from his shoulder, impaling Izuku's side. Gah! Izuku cried out. The fibers pierced his suit, stabbing into his oblique muscles. Blood hot and wet soaked his flank. Blast him! The second user screamed. Use 100%. Blow his head off. No! Izuku gritted his teeth. He grabbed the muscle fibers with his bare hands. He didn't rip them. He channeled one for all into his grip, not to destroy, but to paralyze. He sent a targeted shockwave through the fibers, aiming for Muscular's nervous system. It was a technique he had been practicing. A stun baton effect. What is this? Muscular stuttered as his muscles seized up. Why aren't you punching me? Because fighting you gives you what you want. Izuku yelled, hanging onto the villain as Muscular thrashed. You want violence. You want validation. I won't give it to you. Just kill me. Muscular screamed, frustrated to the point of madness. He slammed his back into a wall, crushing Izuku between his armor and the concrete. Izuku felt a rib snap. The air left his lungs. I won't, Izuku wheezed. He tightened Black Whip. He activated FA gene, but he directed the energy inward, reinforcing the bindings rather than releasing an attack. He wrapped Muscular up like a cocoon. Layer after layer of black energy. Muscular fought. He roared. He tried to expand his muscles to burst the bonds. Izuku held on. He was bleeding from his side. His rib was broken. He was exhausted. But he poured every ounce of his will into holding the villain still. Stop, Izuku whispered into Muscular's ear. Just stop. Minutes passed. It was a battle of attrition. Muscular's rage versus Izuku's endurance. Eventually, Muscular's quirk gave out. The adrenaline crashed. The villain slumped to his knees, encased in black energy, panting. You're boring, Muscular spat, looking at the floor. You're the most boring hero ever. Izuku let go. He stumbled back, clutching his bleeding side. He fell against the crate, sliding down to the floor. He looked at Muscular. The villain was alive. Unbroken. Just tired. Why? Muscular asked again, genuinely confused. You could have turned me into paste. Because, Izuku coughed, spitting blood. If I kill you, I kill the chance that you might change. I won't change, Muscular sneered. Maybe not today, Izuku said, closing his eyes for a second. But maybe tomorrow. Sirens wailed in the distance. The police were coming. Izuku stood up. He swayed. He looked at the bound villain one last time, then turned and limped out the back exit, leaving a trail of his own blood in the dust. Deep underground. Location unknown. Tamura Shigaraki was dreaming. In the dream, he was running through a field of dust. Everything he touched turned to ash. His dog, Manchan. His sister, Hana. His mother. His father. He was screaming, but no sound came out. Then, the sky tore open. A green comet descended. A hero. The hero. Deku. Deku raised his fist. It was a mountain of pressure. It was death. Do it, Tenko Shimura pleaded. End it. Make the itching stop. But the fist stopped. The hero looked at him. The glowing green eyes didn't hold hatred. They held pity. I saw you, the hero said. Tamura woke up screaming. He thrashed in the tank, the fluid bubbling violently. Cables tore from his skin. The glass shattered, flooding the laboratory floor with green goo. Master! Spinner's voice. The lizard villain rushed over with a towel. Are you okay? Did AFO try to take over again? Shigaraki sat on the cold floor, shivering. His skin was pale, crisscrossed with cracks that glowed with a faint red light. The regeneration was fighting a constant war against his own decay. He clawed at his neck. The itch was unbearable. It felt like ants were crawling under his skin, eating him from the inside out. He didn't hit me, Shigaraki rasped. His eyes were wide, manic. Who? Spinner asked, draping the towel over Shigaraki's shoulders. Midoriya, Shigaraki hissed. At Jaku. He stopped. Why did he stop? Because he is weak, the voice of All for One crooned in the back of his mind. Because he lacks the conviction of a true ruler. Shut up. Shigaraki hit the side of his own head. It wasn't weakness. I felt it. It was. He couldn't say the word. Mercy. To say it was to admit he needed it. To say it was to admit he was a victim. He looked at me like I was broken, Shigaraki whispered to the floor. Like I was something to be fixed. He looked at his hands. The hands that destroyed. I hate him, Shigaraki said, but the conviction was gone. It was a hollow statement. I hate him more than anything. Do you? The voice of Tenko Shimura, the crying child, whispered from the depths of his soul. He was the only one who stopped. The only one who looked. Get out of my head! Shigaraki slammed his hand onto the floor. Decay activated. The concrete dissolved. The laboratory equipment rusted and crumbled. The wave of destruction spread outward. Shigaraki, stop! You'll bring the cave down! Spinner yelled, retreating. Shigaraki pulled his hand back just in time. He sat in the center of a crater of dust, panting. He was the symbol of fear. He was the successor to the Demon Lord, so why did he feel like a child waiting to be saved? Rainy rooftops. 4 a.m. Izuku was stitching his own side. He had found a dry spot under a water tower. He didn't have anesthetic. He bit down on a piece of leather from his belt as he pushed the needle through his skin. The pain was sharp and grounding. It reminded him he was alive. You are pushing your luck, the fourth user said. Your body is holding up because of One for All, but your mind is fraying. You need sleep. Can't sleep, Izuku muttered, tying off the stitch. Nagant is close. I can feel her, Lady Nagant. The assassin sent by All for One. She was the next hurdle. Danger sense flared. Not a spike. A steady, cold pressure. Someone was watching him. Izuku stood up. He didn't run. He walked to the edge of the roof and looked out at the rain-slicked city. A bullet whizzed past his ear, cutting a few strands of his green hair. There was no sound of a gunshot. Just the impact of the bullet hitting the water tower behind him. You missed, Izuku said to the rain. I didn't miss, a woman's voice echoed. She was standing on a rooftop 300 meters away. Her rifle, her arm, was raised. Lady Nagant, I was testing your reflexes, she called out. You're slow today, boy. Tired? Izuku activated float. He drifted across the gap between the buildings, moving slowly, deliberately. I want to talk, Izuku said. I'm not paid to talk, Nagant replied. She chambered another round. I'm paid to bring you in. Dead or alive. Though the customer prefers alive, she fired. The bullet curved in the air. Her quirk allowed her to control the trajectory. It aimed for Izuku's kneecap. Izuku could have dodged. He could have used Black Whip to snatch the bullet. Instead, he took it. He shifted his leg slightly so the bullet hit the armored plating of his shin guard. The impact knocked him back in the air, bruising the bone, but he didn't stop moving forward. Why? Nagant asked, lowering her scope slightly. You saw that coming. If I dodge, the bullet hits the apartment complex behind me, Izuku said, landing on the roof, 20 meters from her. Nagant paused. She glanced behind him. He was right. You're a strange one, she said. She raised her gun again. The rumors are true. The hero who doesn't fight. I fight, Izuku said, walking toward her. I fight every day. I just choose who I fight. And who are you fighting now? Despair, Izuku said. Nagant scoffed. Pretty words. But despair pays the bills. Hero society is a sham, kid. I should know. I cleaned up their messes for years. I killed people just like you, idealists who got in the way. I know, Izuku said. He was 10 meters away. And it broke you. Nagant's eyes narrowed. Don't psychoanalyze me, she fired again. This time, point blank. Aimed at his shoulder. Izuku moved. Not away. Forward. He dashed inside her guard. The bullet grazed his cheek, tearing the mask, revealing his freckled, blood-streaked face. He didn't punch her. He didn't kick her. He hugged her. It was a tackle, technically, but his arms wrapped around her, pinning her rifle arm to her side. The momentum carried them both to the wet roof. Nagant struggled, trying to knee him, trying to fire a shot from her elbow. Let go! She yelled. All for One is using you! Izuku shouted over the rain. He doesn't care about your disillusionment. He just wants your hatred. Don't let him turn you into another tool. You stopped being a hero because you hated being a tool. Don't become one for the villains. Nagant froze. The words cut deeper than a knife. She looked up at him. He was bleeding onto her. His cheek was open. His side was stained red. He smelled of mud and sickness, but his eyes. Those damn green eyes. They were burning with a terrifying, unconditional acceptance. You're crazy, Nagant whispered. You're actually crazy. Please, Izuku said, loosening his grip but not letting go. Tell me where he is. Help me save him. Nagant stared at the rain falling on his face. She had expected a self-righteous speech. She had expected a beatdown. She hadn't expected a boy who would take a bullet just to ask for help. She felt something crack inside her chest. The cynical armor she had built around her heart since the day she killed the commission president. He's... Nagant started, her voice trembling. He's in the Heibori woods. An old mansion. Suddenly, her body seized. Run! Nagant screamed. Her quirk, the airwalk All for One had given her, was booby-trapped. She began to glow. A self-destruct sequence. No! Izuku screamed. He didn't run. Of course he didn't run. He grabbed her tighter. Danger sense screamed at him to flee. The second user screamed at him to drop her. Izuku wrapped Black Whip around both of them, creating a cocoon. He activated FA gene to reinforce his own skin. He pulled her against his chest, shielding her with his own body. Boom! The explosion was contained, mostly. But the force slammed Izuku's back. It felt like being hit by a train. His already broken ribs shattered. His skin burned. But the blast didn't kill her. Smoke cleared. Izuku lay on the roof, smoke rising from his back. He was coughing violently. Nagant was underneath him. Singed, burnt, but alive. She stared up at him in horror. Why? She croaked. Why didn't you let me die? Izuku smiled. It was a bloody, jagged smile. Because, he wheezed, Grandma Nana would be mad at me if I didn't save a lady. He rolled off her and lay staring at the gray sky. He couldn't feel his legs. He was pretty sure he had internal bleeding, but he had the location. And he had saved a soul. Heibori Woods, Izuku whispered to himself. He closed his eyes, letting the rain wash the blood away. Just for a minute. He would rest for just a minute. Then, the green ghost would rise again.